Okay, so I know you want my recipe for beef tips and rice. Beef tips can be anything. It can be a chunk of whatever. And so if you look right here, you'll see this was just a big chunk of chuck steak or chuck roast. And I cut the bone out of it and I've got this. And so what I'm gonna do is cut it into some small pieces. Probably not quite that small. That's like some trim off of it. But I'm gonna cut it in some chunks. And like see this, I'm gonna trim it up. And all this, it'll get trimmed up nice and neat, cut the gristle out of it. And then the next chapter, I'll show you where we go from there. Okay, so here we're back. You know, I showed you the big chunk of meat. And so what we got here now, this is only for 3 people, like for 1 meal. I mean, you can cut up as much as you want. And so that's what it looks like, different size chunks. And that's what we're gonna be cooking with later. So as you can see, the meat, I got it chopped up. It's probably been sitting out at room temperature for a couple hours. I don't like to cook cold meat. I got an onion, got some vegetable oil, got the basic spices, salt, black pepper, white pepper, red pepper. We're just gonna use a little bit of this. And got some cheated Walmart chopped garlic. So onion and garlic's gonna make it. But here's the secret ingredients, okay? Some brown gravy mix if I need it. Doesn't matter, the cheapest store brand you can get. I may not use this, but I might. And some beef bouillon cubes. Okay? So it doesn't matter what brand. Weiler's is fine. Anybody at McCormick's is fine. Okay, here's the trick. That's why you're very careful with the salt, because the bouillon cubes and the brown gravy mix both have salt in it. That's why I'm very light on the salt. I'm going to season the meat. So if you take a look, I got my salt grinder here. I'm going to do a little salt. And then we're going to do a little pepper. Okay. All right. Now, again, that's close to room temperature. Then we got us a bowl of just plain old all-purpose flour. There's no seasoning in here. Watch. I'm going to throw the meat in. And normally there's enough meat. There's enough meat to make about 5 batches of meat this big. So what are we doing? We're just going to toss it in the flour. And actually I'm going to let it sit in there for a little bit. In the meantime, while it's sitting in there, cast iron pot. This one's by Lodge, okay? I like the enamel coated. It could be a black iron skillet if you want, but enamel. I'm going to turn this heat up super high. I want to get this pan smoking hot. Smoking hot. A little vegetable oil, and then we're going to put the meat in. The trick is you cook the meat and you kind of want to burn it on the outside. Burn that flour a little bit because it builds a crust in the bottom of the pan. And if you do 4 or 5 batches of meat, you end up with a crust like this thick on the bottom of the pan. That's okay, but watch your heat because you don't want to burn that crust. You want it dark and almost burnt, but not burnt. And then we're going to chop up the onion. We're going to throw in there, use a liquid from the onion and the garlic to kind of break the stuff off the bottom, and then add a little bit of water into the bottom of the pan. And we're going to scrape and scrape and scrape, get all that off the bottom of the pan. We're going to start building our layers of flavor. So I'll get all this going, and then we'll come back to you in a little bit. Okay, so we got the pan hot, plain old vegetable oil, Walmart. Okay, now look inside the pot. This is the fat that's going to help build the roux. Okay, so there's a little bit in there, maybe a tiny bit too much. All right, here's the meat. Kind of shake off some excess. Just throw it in there. Get a look at that, Ryan. Get a little quick peek. I got Ryan Shelby Wayne doing my camera work. Okay, meat. So I got all the meat out here. I'm gonna hang on to this flour in case I need to help build a little bit more roux, okay? So I just leave it over here on the side. See, I got some onion chopped. If I was gonna do several batches of meat, I would probably chop that whole onion, maybe even another half of an onion, okay? So wooden spoon. I'm gonna use a towel because this pan gets hot. Okay, so I wanna get it in there. I wanna make sure I got all the meat sitting in the bottom of the pan. I got that fire screaming. All right. One other thing. So if I was going to do several batches of meat, I'd have a plate off over here on the side. And as I cook the meat, I'd put it on the plate and just let it sit there. Then when it's time to add the meat back in, I scrape everything off the plate. The meat, the grease, grime, anything that's on that plate goes back in the pot, right? So I got the fire screaming still. We're gonna let that sit there and actually kind of try to burn just a little bit, all right? So I'll get this going, we'll come back to you in a little bit, thanks. So get a look right here real quick, Ryan. It's starting to burn a little bit, and I can smell it and you can see it, all right? You can see the smoke coming out, all right? We'll hold it in there like that. We're gonna let it go a little longer. All right, something else I wanted to show you, like these cubes are wrapped in paper. So I took them out. I got some hot water here. I threw 2 of them in there already. Okay, so got a little hot, which is okay. But you can see we got it burn a little bit. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is take this, dump it on a plate. Now, if I was going to do more batches of meat, back on a fire, I would put more oil in there. And you see we got a little crust in there, but not as much as I want. So because we don't, I'm probably going to end up using the brown gravy mix, all right? So what I'm going to do is I am going to add just a dab of oil. Just a dab. Okay, we'll let it get hot in the pan. Won't take but a second. Just roll it around, and then we'll get my onions going. And I decided to chop up some more onions. Can't really go wrong with onions. Too much is no such thing. I think that's enough I got in there. It'll cook down. I'm gonna stir it and stay after it. I want them to get translucent. And we'll add a little garlic here in a couple minutes. And okay, all we're doing is, you see me working these onions because I want to get the stuff off the side of the bowl, right? And when you've done several batches of meat, it's going to be a thick crust. So you're going to be rubbing with the spoon, rubbing hard with the spoon, breaking that off the bottom. And a little water will help once the onions and garlic are done, okay? All right, see you later. Okay, now you got to look at the onions. See how they're starting to get translucent? So I got a knife here. It's got that chopped garlic on it. We'll dump it over in there. And we'll let it go. You don't want to let it go too long or else it'll get bitter. So you got to get your water in here after probably about 90 seconds, okay? All right, thanks, see you in a minute. Okay, I added about a cup of water. Ryan, take a look close. And you see there is still some crust on the bottom, so I'm working it off there. See how the water turned brown? Nothing's been added to the water. That's just the brownness from the bottom of the pot, okay? I'm gonna keep scraping the stuff off the sides of the pot and everything else. And like I said, because I'm only doing a small batch of meat, I'll probably go ahead and use the gravy mix, okay? Hey, so come here. Look, this is still just the water and the onion and the garlic. No seasonings or anything. This is that gravy mix, like cheap gravy mix. Just gonna add it in real quick. Some remnants in the bottom, no big deal. All right, next thing, the hot water with the bouillon cubes. All right, now, what's gonna thicken this up is the meat over here that's got flour clinging all to it, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go with this for a minute, and we can always add more water if we don't like the consistency or whatever. So here, while we're here, I'm gonna go ahead and add the meat. Including all the grease and crunchies and anything else that's on there. And again, I keep saying that usually I do a big batch and the plate's piled high with meat. And so, heck, I even dip it in there and get it off there, okay? And there we go. So we're gonna let this heat up real good. I'll probably add some water and it'll build up our gravy, and then that'll be it. We just let it go low and slow for a couple hours, all right? Thanks, we'll be back with you in a minute, bye. Okay, So here, I had it going for a little while, and it got really thick. And even though the fire was low, there was there was a crust that started building on the bottom, which is a cool thing because you get some flavor out of that. But you got to be careful. Sorry, I feel like the Blair Witch Project here. So I added some hot water, a substantial amount, probably 2 cups. And you can see now it's kind of thin, but that's okay because it's going to cook down again. And while it's cooking down, it just keeps tenderizing the meat and rendering the fat out of the meat into the broth. So this is what we're doing. And I got the bottom all smooth again now. And so, see the stuff on the sides? That's love right there. Yeah, that's some love. And I'll scrape that and we'll get it back down in there. And hope y'all are enjoying this. Bye. Okay, we're kind of at that stage close to the end. I sampled the meat just a minute ago and it's perfect. We got this gorgeous glistening gravy going on here. I double checked the seasoning about 15-20 minutes ago and I added just a couple things. Not any salt, but I did add a little black pepper and a little shot of white pepper. Let me taste it real quick. I like it, but the wife's going to say it needs salt. By the way, this is the point of the meal, especially since it's Saturday and it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon where beverage service starts. I highly recommend the Cotton Hollow Texas Straight Bourbon Whiskey. It's very choice, but because it's 115 proof, we got to do a little ice. It tastes very, very nice when it melts down. Hope things are going well in your world. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.